Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast Cranny. The first question is, why might you consider starting a podcast? And we're going to start off by just talking about why we started ours. So I'm going to hand it over to Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Knight. I want to take you way back in time. The year was 2010. It was after the 2000s. And I was teaching at University of North Dakota, and I was following along with my now colleague, but I also considered a colleague then, is Dr. Bly Lagasse, and she had music therapy research blog, and I was getting into podcasts myself just as a listener. I guess it's just one of those things that naturally happens when you have an iPhone and you see the little podcasts happen. You want to experiment a little bit. And I got in touch with her and I said, you've got this blog stuff, which is basically people were putting, kind of like summaries of new research articles that were coming out. And I said, what about another venue to get that information out there, like podcasts? And so in 2010, I'm pretty sure we started just talking to each other. I think we did it over Skype, and we'd record off of Skype, and then I would take it and dump it into a really early version of GarageBand. And I just thought this could be really fun, because at that time we both considered ourselves, we were both newer to teaching and to research and everything. And so it was a way for me to connect with a colleague, and also a way that I felt like I was contributing to the profession, because I felt like I was helping people have a different way of getting through research and making it more accessible to them if they were new clinicians, or they maybe didn't have a very in-depth research class, that they could listen to a podcast, and that the discussion style of the podcast might help them sort of register that research information in a really different way. So we started doing the podcasts, and then we started doing a bunch of different series where we would go to conferences together and we'd interview people at conferences and make that some of podcast episodes. Or it would just be somebody who had a new article that just came out, and we would use that to sort of publicize that article. So we would talk to the authors and the researchers, and that also helped me kind of form a better understanding of my own interest in research and network, and really start to meet people, because when you do certain kinds of podcasts, I think you get to know them really well. Mm-hmm. Because you have these kind of long form interviews. So those are a variety of my first forays into actually creating podcasts through the research blog, and it's still up, and a bunch of the podcasts are still on our server and everything. musictherapyresearchblog.com.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Next, what's up, Kate?
Hey, I'm Kate Shannon. I host the podcast called Creative Therapy Umbrella. And the reason why I started the podcast goes back to my master's degree, because I was really lucky with doing a master's degree in a department that was a creative arts therapy department. So we were always working alongside art therapists, and one of our teachers was a play therapist. One teacher did yoga therapy. So there was a lot of other creative arts. And I didn't realize how lucky I was until I got out into the real world and started talking to other music therapists, and they don't frequently have that opportunity. And for me, I wanted to continue the conversation for music therapists with connecting with other creative arts therapists, because as music therapists, we're always talking to speech therapists, OT, PT, mm-hmm. doctors, psychologists. We're always talking to adjacent fields, but I feel like that really doesn't happen a lot within the creative arts therapy field. So I started Creative Therapy Umbrella so that people could have a place to kind of come under one umbrella and hear different perspectives of art therapy, dance, drama, music therapy, play, social workers who are utilizing journaling within their therapy and different creative approaches to therapy, expressive therapy too, which is also another really cool adjacent field. So I really just wanted to find a way to connect with other people. Selfishly, I really just liked it, of talking with people and hearing what they do and hearing their passions. And then putting it out, people have really begun to learn more and expand their own understanding, especially with their clinical skills and finding areas where they want to get more training. So it helped me to, I think like Andrew said, it helped me kind of to solidify what I'm really interested and hone in my own skills of, you know, research that I'm interested in, all of that. But it's also a really great way to advocate for our field and for connecting with other people and making those connections on a larger level.
Nice. Thanks, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris.
All right. Long-time listener, first-time podcaster. I have, like Andrew, I was listening to podcasts for a very long time. Stuff You Should Know was probably the first rabbit hole I fell way down. And I'm still with Josh and Chuck. We go in seasons of listening a lot and then not listening as much. But I really liked all the music gear and guitar. I'm a guitarist first and foremost, so I really liked all the guitar-based podcasts and thought, you know, there's a lot of cool music therapy podcasts, and they're really awesome, but to me it felt like they were for music therapists, and which was great. I listened to them, but I thought, if I'm going to do something, I would want to spin where how can people learn about music therapy without it being like necessarily like come here to find out about music therapy, but like how can music therapy mingle in the talks and the stories of different music professionals. So my show is called Make More Music. I launched this year and now I also edit the music and the podcast for Tim Ringgold's podcast, Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's a relaxation-based, loop-based music podcast. So I've been involved with those, and in Make More Music, it's an interview style where I just wanted to kind of show all the different paths. And just like Kate, I would just selfishly thought it was so cool to hear, you know, how people are being career coaches in music, how people are being audio engineers, how people are being music therapists. And the cool thing with that is I know a bunch of different people in music therapy that are doing very specific cool things. So interviewing like Brian Schreck and talking to him about developing the heartbeat recordings, and but also then getting to talk with like Robert Randolph, who I just think rips on the steel guitar. So it's fun to just another interview based show, and it's been fun being creative and, you know, creating the music. Yeah, for me, it's just that idea of my whole show's philosophy is connecting people to music and one another. So it's just really sharing all kind of music stories, because when you tell me I have to be in a box, the like 13-year-old version of me rebels and wants to not be in a box really hard. So that's why I made a show that is very unniche, which is, you know, what they tell you to, yeah, niche down. And I was like, no, I'm going as wide as I want to go. So it's been fun. So that's my story, if you will.
Great story. So I'm Gabby, and I manage and co-host the Clinical Populations podcast, which started off as just a discussion podcast where we listen to songs from new and undiscovered artists and talk about what we like about it, dig deep into the words and the music, and then relate it back to clinical theory and practice. Since then, it has grown into different forms where we interview artists and we interview music therapists, and we also have co-hosts, but it's all centered around listening to music and helping promote music and its uses within music therapy. So it got started because the first co-host and I, Allison Rogers, and I both songwrite, but we're also both music therapists, and we just wanted to combine the two loves and kind of start something different from what had been produced originally within the music therapy podcast world. So it was a lot of interviews, but we wanted to make it sound like you were, you know, sitting in a coffee shop or in a bar with some friends and just talking about music and what you do for a living or what you're studying. So yeah, that's why we started it. So as you can see, we all started our podcasts for various reasons, but if we had to summarize it, the three main reasons are for advocacy, education, and then also actual clinical therapeutic experiences. So in advocacy, podcasts can be used to promote awareness of our field to the broader public, to different disciplines, also to introducing what we do to potential clients, and then also to collaborate with other disciplines. And then for education, it can be used to convey research and to interview music therapists about their work. And then in clinical practice, as a therapeutic experience, it can be used in-house in facilities to promote community, or it can be used to promote what you're doing to the greater public and share what you're doing to the public. So all of that depends on the privacy guidelines of where you're working and as well as consent of clients. But overall, making podcasts affords opportunities for expression, agency, empowerment, and social interaction.